Les Miles is a genius. Let's pour some coffee on that. Hey, it's Father Brad Doyle, and you're watching Coffee Talk, where we drink coffee and talk about Jesus. I like Les Miles. You know why? Because he very rarely gave you coach speak. Do you know what coach speak is? It's the cliche things that coaches say when asked questions in post-game interviews or at halftime. I would watch LSU football games just to hear the amazing craziness that would inevitably be said by Coach Les Miles, and he was awesome. I hope he does well in Kansas. But that's a pet peeve of mine. I hate coach speak. You know what it is? It's like at halftime and the reporter comes up and is like, "Coach, you're down 35 points. What do you need to do?" And the coach is like, "We need to stop them and score more points." Well, yes, duh. But how are you going to do that? Right? Coach speak is just the cliche things you say whenever you're in a situation because you have to say it, and that's what's always been said. We need to give more effort. Well, duh. But how are we going to do that? And sometimes as a church, we fall in our leadership, we can fall into coach speak, especially when addressing scandals. It's a pet peeve. I hate it. Of course, the sins of the church are abhorrent, and we reject those sins and we call them out. Of course, we're sorry. But what are we going to do? Enough coach speak. What are we going to do? I don't have all the answers, but here's some of my thoughts and how to appropriately approach as Catholics, my perspective as a priest, the scandals of members of the church in general. Number one, we must be real. We can't bury our head. We can't brush it under the rug. We can't not talk about it. We can't change the subject. There was a poll recently released, a Gallup poll, and it was in, foil to a poll released in 2002. So when the church sex abuse scandal broke in 2002, there was a poll done, the same question, and there was a poll just recently done. And here are the results. In 2002, at the beginning of the exposure of the sexual abuse in the church, only 22% of those Catholics asked said that they have personally questioned whether you would remain in the Catholic Church or not. In a recent poll, 37% of Catholics said they had. That is a significant statistical increase and indicative of how fed up Catholics are. And we have a choice of how we respond. We can respond and be dismissive and say, well, those people never had faith. We can just ignore it and say, oh, we'll get through it. But I think that does an injustice to the church, to Jesus' church, to those people who have been hurt and who have questioned. Hey, I admit, I myself has questioned. I'm a priest. Now, obviously, I've chosen through prayer and reason and logic, and I'll talk more about it later, that I'm not going to abandon the bride. I'm not going to abandon Christ's church. I'm not going to abandon the truth. But I have questioned. We shouldn't be normally responding to what's come out. Like, everyone should question. So we can't blame people who've questioned. We can't blame people who have left. We can't shame them. We need to be with them in compassion and walk with them. Years ago, someone close to me said they would never watch the movie Spotlight. It's a movie about the Boston Globe, expose and exposure of the sex abuse scandal in Boston. Is it a perfect movie? No. Really great cinematic movie, and I think important for Catholics to watch. Why? Because we can't bury our heads. We have to be real. We have to recognize. And even if it hurts, open the wound. That's the only way we can address scandal, address what's ailing the church, is if we know. We have to open our eyes. Number two, we can't play the persecution card. We're kind of past it. Personally, as a priest, there's been times, especially in the last couple of months, since this past summer, where I've been called out in certain situations. I've been, some horrible things have been said to me. I had a decision to make too in those moments. I could stand up and get indignant. I could yell at the person who called me a pedophile. I could respond in a angry way, like, how dare you persecute? No. We never know where people are at. We never know where they've been. They might have been hurt. They might have family members who've been hurt. And we cannot play the persecution card. The church has always been more effective when persecuted, when brought down a notch. We've been ineffective and actually prone to scandal whenever we're placed on a pedestal. So you know what? I'm not upset. I'm not upset about us being brought down a notch. I'm not upset about us being taken down from a pedestal. Because you know what's left is the gospel, the truth of the gospel. Number 3, we have to leave clericalism behind. Now, what's clericalism? Clericalism is the idea that by the very office of priest or bishop, deacon, a man higher than the laity, or is more important than the laity. And obviously, we recognize clericalism isn't respecting the office of bishop or respecting the office of a priest, but it's about associating a priest or a person's personal holiness or level and I guess, dignity personally with their office. And we have to leave that behind. Why? Because abuse occurs in association with power. And that goes for any level, not just in the church, but in schools, in governments, in Hollywood offices, right? It's about power over another person and the perceived inability to be held accountable. There's a part of Lumen Gentium, which is one of the documents of the Second Vatican Council. And it reaffirmed a very seminal, important teaching that's always been the case, and that's the universal call to holiness. We sometimes fall in the trap, and since the 50s, I think this has been the case, in the 50s golden era before the Second Vatican Council, this was prevalent. If you want to be really holy, you become a priest. If you want to be really holy, become a religious sister. If you want to be second class, or you want to be not so much, you don't have what it takes, then you get married or you stay in the world. And that's completely false. Some people are called to be priests. We need those people to be priests. Some people are called to be religious sisters. We need them to do that, but because they are called to it, because that's their personal way to holiness and to bring the church to holiness. But we need holy married people. We need holy people living in the world. We need holy doctors. We need holy lawyers. We need the universal call to holiness. So we're all in the boat. We're all on our way. And we can't place people up on pedestals because that's when Satan can use power and authority and maybe a distortion of the dignity of the office of priest and bishop to allow his plans to be worked in the church. So leave clericalism behind. And 4, we must focus on Jesus. Kind of a cop-out answer maybe a little coach speak, but it's true. It's like holiness, personal holiness, and Jesus Christ is the answer. He's the ultimate bridegroom of the church. He is the high priest. He is the bishop, if you will, of all bishops. He is the overseer, the episcopus. Episcopoi is multiple bishops. I think episcopus might be Anyway, he is the one in charge. And so if we are going to purify the church, we have to hand the church back over to Jesus Christ. Father Rupe, he was the head of the Jesuit order, and he has a beautiful poem or a prayer that he wrote. Nothing is more practical than finding God, than falling in love in a quite absolute final way. What you are in love with, what seizes your imagination, will affect everything. It will decide what will get you out of bed in the morning, what you will do with your evenings, how you spend your weekends, what you read, whom you know, what breaks your heart, what amazes you with joy and gratitude. Fall in love, stay in love, and it will decide everything. If we fall in love with Jesus, the bridegroom of the church, if our priests, our seminarians, our bishops, our lay people, our doctors, our lawyers, our people who are in the pews, if everyone falls in love with Jesus, then I think the church will find healing. It's not wispy, it's not up in the clouds, like real encounter, love. Go back to the scriptures, go back to prayer. Follow your commitments as a married person or a priest or a bishop. Pray your breviary. Be real about your life, your Christian life and morality. And I think the church will find healing. We've got to focus back on Jesus. And finally, I said at the beginning that, any sane person had to think, wow, am I in the right place? Should I remain Catholic? It was a quick answer for me. I went to prayer, I put it before the Lord, and he said, yeah. He didn't actually sound like that. It was more of me sounding like that. But yes. Why? Because the truth. Because the sacraments, because of the Eucharist, because of confession. I'm never going to leave that. I'm never going to leave Jesus. Because even though there's broken people, there's broken individuals in the church, we shouldn't give them more power than they've already taken. So these very sick, broken individuals who've royally messed up in the church with their leadership, their authority, why give them the power of the sacraments? Why give them the power to take us away, to push us away? That's not their sacraments. It's not their church. In fact, they've let the bride down. So we should not give them more power. Your right as a Catholic, as a Christian, is the sacraments, is a relationship with Jesus Christ and an encounter with him. You deserve to be forgiven. You deserve to receive the Eucharist. You deserve to be married in the church. You deserve all these things. It's your birthright as a baptized Christian. Don't let broken men take that away from you. We want you and you deserve it. Please stay.